folks. It's Herb Stevenson.
How you doing? It's Sahadeo Ramparek.
This is Natural Passages, Revealing Unmarked Doors of Life. I think it's podcast 13,
All right, lucky number 13.
maybe, might be 14. And yeah, looking forward to it. So you asked me, Sahadeo, to talk a little bit about it. So I'll say a little bit about why this subject. We're going to talk about transitions. Um, in a program that I did recently, one of the things that came up is how to navigate transitions. And it fits really well because you're in the middle of a massive transition. So we can personalize this very specifically if we, without embarrassing you, hopefully. So,
Thank
um, yeah. So I want to get into it. In these 7 stages, give you a little bit of background. There's a lot of people who have put work into this. The one that I've used the most is three gentlemen, Adams, Hayes, and Hobson, came up with this idea that we go through this cycle
you.
at 7 stages. And over the years, then that was something like 1976, 77, telling my age again. But what it does is helps people understand something in a transition. So I want to talk about a transition. I want to be clear. It's a variety of things. So when we talk about transitions, people don't really pay attention to it. If you understand the stages, it's just similar to like the grief stages. So the stages of anything that's a major shift or change. So that can be a divorce, it can be a marriage, it can be a death, it can be a job change, it can be changing to a new house. All of these things, we go through this process, uh, these 7 stages, and so I think it'll be very helpful for everybody as we chat through it. And obviously, you're going through a major transition yourself with a job change,
Yeah,
so this should be
absolutely.
something
And
supportive.
it's timely too, because what about like seasonal changes? We're transitioning to fall. Does it change back to school again?
I think back to school for kids, and to a degree by parents. I think that's true. Uh, Seasonal change. I don't. I think people kind of put a lot of that in the background. Uh, but I don't know. Maybe it does affect some people. I know from a seasonal disorder change, it does. Like the sunshine affects people. But let's just stick to the day to day grind and see what happens.
Right.
So the first stage is a lot of people goes. Most everybody goes through with this is shock. And when we say shock, there's three aspects to it. Um, there's literally the feeling of shock. It shocks your system.
Hmm.
So we feel it energetically. Second is surprise. It was just something, even though you may have had a whole lot of indicators, now that you look back, you're totally surprised. Or your expectation and reality has a gap. So what you thought was going to be your new job versus what the reality of your new job might have a gap.
Yes.
And so what that ends up doing is creating a dilemma to a certain degree. And this is where energetically it's really important. And it's about how your presence can support you. If you understand each of the steps, you can begin to navigate them. So part of the shock phase, there's like 6 characteristics. So you can go into panic or you can go into immobilization as one.
Uh,
Panic is frenetic. Immobilization, I just freeze.
yeah.
The gap between expectations frustrates us because we suddenly realize I took a job, I'm not sure I took the right job. And then that can lead to a sense of loss of confidence,
No,
confusion.
no,
How did I miss this?
yeah.
And then we get into the, which a lot of people don't talk very much about, but it's called the known unknown discomfort. I thought I knew this, but I'm finding out all the stuff I didn't know. And then you begin to second guess yourself even further, and that discomfort rises to the point that you sit down and really begin to question yourself. And the final stage of this then creates what I call active inertia. I actively can't move. I don't know what to do. I'm spinning, doing all sorts of frustrations. The good part is it's not permanent.
Did you watch me go through all of this in like a month or a week as I transitioned into my new role?
Yeah,
Wow. Because I literally, as you described this, I can even remember like feelings at different points of time, the questioning, the confidence, that one I felt for sure. And then I do exist in the space sometimes of the immobilization where you're not sure, you're frozen, like you don't know what to do.
sure. So then you go to the next step. This is kind of like ready or not, you're going to get moved. So stage two is often referred to as denial, but I like to refer to it more than that. It's denial, disbelief, and doubt.
Okay.
And what way that plays out is we'll have thoughts like, what the hell happened? And then you go into defensiveness of, you told me this was my job, and now you're telling me it's not my job.
Mhm.
And then you begin to look at, okay, how do I buy time and drag my feet a little bit? Do I start looking for another job? Do I try to convince my prior employer to rehire me? Um, and you can actually go even further because some people at this page, it's so overwhelming, they can go into a withdrawal where they just ignore it. All the emotions, they show up, but that's also when you have quiet disengagement, which is they'll show up but they're not doing much.
Yeah.
And then they get into, especially this happens in mergers and acquisitions of major organizations and hospitals, medical facilities are no different than anybody else.
Mhm.
You get into the situation of denial where you begin to um, deny the need for the change, but you're also in a other side of it is beginning to create a sense of, um, for example, the idea of competency often comes up at this stage. You begin to question yourself.
Mhm.
And but on the flip side, to overcome that, then you might tell soothing stories. Well, that's not what they promised me, and this is what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
And it, it leads to a final area, which is you begin to just acknowledge you're in a sense of rising discomfort. It doesn't even have words. You just feel it.
So you have to be okay in that stage being uncomfortable, like you're just gonna sit in uncomfortableness.
Yeah, because what happens is with any new change is what we get. We don't realize it, but we're animals of habit. So we have these routines of how we go to work and how we have our
Mhm.
breakfast and what we do when we go to get to work and what we do at our desk and where we get our coffee and we get all this, and then suddenly none of that's real anymore.
Mhm.
And so the denial part of it is a natural trying to make sense of everything that I thought was familiar that
Mhm.
now is unfamiliar. So in your case, you went from being a relatively short commute to a long commute.
Mhm. Yeah.
All the frustrations that goes with that.
Yes. And
You went
earlier
from
start time.
start time, getting out of bed time,
Yeah.
your whole life got changed. Your whole
Yeah.
routine got changed. And so that's a natural aspect of denial is one of the aspects of denial is should I stay? Should I leave?
Yeah.
So then you go into stage three, and stage three is interesting because you go into a mixture. It builds a mixture of awareness and self doubt. So you begin to realize, okay, I have a certain amount of awareness that this change was necessary. Your job was being
Mhm.
phased out. You're considering the possibilities of this change and how do I fit in? But at the same time, you have this other side over here that creates a sense of self doubt because you still haven't found a routine.
Yeah.
So you're softening to the reality of the change, but you're also feeling like you're stuck in between. And again, it's not comfortable. And when I say that, the internal feeling you have most of the time is being unsettled.
Mhm.
Just can't find your center. So I call it is you're having a changing center of gravity.
Yes, I can remember living for weeks. I feel like feeling ungrounded. And then it took a long time to come back to, okay, the transition was like giving myself the grounded balance that the job is not all of my identity. And like, how do I take care of myself and take care of like all of this transition and other stuff that I have to like attend to? And that's what's kind of led me to change some, other things on my end here that I maybe ignored before, but these are new changes too that I need to put into place to keep myself focused and grounded and not lose all of myself by all of the confusion that's happening like at work and the change and transition there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're looking for a feel good
Yes.
and we can't find it. Somebody stole my feel good.
Yeah.
So the fourth stage we begin to move into, and this again is natural and it has two aspects to it. And the first aspect is it's a tentative acceptance that the change maybe is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we begin to let go of all the things we were attached to that made us feel safe, familiar.
Mm-hmm.
We began to realize a little bit more effort, I can accept the change is going to happen. I'm going to move into this situation. I began considering a new future in this organization.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I can also, though, the problem with it is with this tentative acceptance is periodically I'm going to play ping pong with myself of feeling good and then having all of a sudden this big wave of self doubt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh shit,
Mm-hmm.
something happens unexpected. The boss does something. Somebody looks at you
Yes.
cross-eyed, and you're all out of equilibrium again.
Yep.
But as you continue to move through this stage, begin to realize possibilities, and you begin to discard the past by actually, okay, I'm going to step into this. Now,
Mm-hmm.
here's the second part of this stage that's difficult. For some people, if that rising self doubt takes over,
Mm-hmm.
they will actually jump back to stage two into denial and begin the whole process over of all the fear, etc., disbelief, doubt.
Okay.
Uh, and that oftentimes when people in this stage either get stuck there and end up not doing their job, getting terminated, or going back to the old job because they just can't see themselves here. It's not a right or wrong. It's just understanding that you can go back.
Mm-hmm.
And with support, what the impact of it is you will go from stage four to stage five, which is when you actually start bringing yourself out of, in the transition. So you begin to actually um, test your hypothesis for real that maybe this was a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that for real, it literally is because several things go on at this area. You're literally transitioning your internal center of gravity, your internal identity of who you are, where you work, what you do. So you suddenly begin to do tentative practice and you realize, oh God, I know how to do this stuff you weren't applying, but now are. You also get into with what Robert Sutton called the knowing doing gap.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to do something, but I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as that gap reduces, you begin to know the company and you also know what you're capable of doing and you begin to find a way to actually do it and you reduce that gap down and you start having many successes.
Yeah.
And that can be in relationships, that can be in any aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So another way of saying this is you do a pilot program, which I like to call it a solo flight. Okay. You're now saying, I'm going to throw this out there and do something.
Okay.
And when we do it initially, oftentimes we're doing it in a way to get approval, not based on what we know to be the right thing to do for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So when we throw an idea out at the very beginning, people have not built enough relationship with us, and it's kind of like goes splat. but you understand that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was because you hadn't gone far enough in the experiment, but you get your toe and foot fully into the water of the organization to know, how do I go about presenting this? It's not that the ideas were bad. You just didn't have enough background with them.
Mhm. Enough
So,
conflict relationships. Yeah.
right. So it's a reduction at this point. As you make these small successes, you have a reduction of internal wobble, is what I call it.
Mm.
Your insides feel like you're wobbling all the time. It's like you moved a bowl of Jello too fast, and it's going. Rah, 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 rah.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the end of this stage, you end up creating what's called a comfortable new behavior.
Okay.
And it is new behavior. It's part of what you were good at the past, but it's now adapted to the new organization. Now, we're playing it strictly organizational, but think about it. This is going to apply to a marriage.
Hmm.
How many people go through all of these processes in a relationship?
Yeah. Adapting to a new person, trying to fit in with them, changing your lifestyle to adjust to accommodate someone else, depending on your personality, I guess. But yeah.
So stage six is the meaning making place.
Mm.
And we need to make meaning in order to feel safe, successful, confident. So if we have not made meaning of our new situation, how we fit in, it becomes a problem. So during this stage, continuing on with yours, you have a realignment of your perceptions. You're no longer measuring against the old place. You're now measuring against where you are.
Yes.
Begin to repattern your routines because you have different routines because of the organization. You begin to have small successes, which means you start feeling comfortable and it's foreseeable that, hey, I could see myself doing well here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have a revised self definition, which is a big key piece. The revised self definition is how do I fit into this organization?
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, you create new constructs of yourself and your work, which is the new meaning making constructs of how I fit in, who I am, how I relate to all these people. And it's a really, it's not that place where we feel totally comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that place where we're beginning to realize, yeah, maybe this was a good decision.
Yeah. Not so bad anymore. There's some
Uh,
light at the end of the tunnel, maybe.
sure. So the last one, and this usually takes 12 to 18 months to go through this whole process.
I was gonna ask you for a time frame, like how do you how
Most
long?
people, it's 12 to 18 months if they have the patience. If they don't have the patience, and it's one of those things that um, that's why they can leave in 6 months.
Because I was looking at a 30, 60, 90 days cycle, and this is telling us now, like, slow down even more for the expansion of like 12 months. Give yourself the time of like a year.
Yeah, usually it takes a whole year to even understand the organization and what your new job is because
Right.
it's a redefinition. I've said this in some of our prior podcasts. That's why I don't like the 90-day plan. I don't care if you're internally or you're externally. You come in with a 90-day plan and have not fully vetted the organization. You're shooting uh, live bullets in directions that probably are not going to be useful.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I've said this in the past. Lou Gerstner's idea of the turnaround of IBM is one of the best that's out there because he found out what they're good at first
Mm-hmm.
and what they're not good at, got rid of the not good at, and rebuilt IBM into a highly successful again. But IBM actually has a history, the most success I'm aware of, reinventing itself
Brilliant.
and constantly evolving into something more than it was. So they have a whole history of that. And which then leads us to the integration stage. The integration stage is actually integration inside ourselves.
Good.
So what that looks like is we have a complete sense of rebalancing. I'm not in wobble. I have a new sense of competency. I know how I fit. I know what I need to learn that I don't know. I have new skills in use now, just simply because I was forced to the right of the edge of myself. And I want to come back to that in a moment. There's a clarity of my place within the world or this organization. I have a sense of internalized resonance, internal comfort, and then that all the integration is a change within. But a lot of the issue for us is at this stage is we begin to realize we were at the edge of ourself. Now, if you can visualize you were a bubble
Mhm.
and you're trying to take this bubble and apply it on top of the new organization, but the new organization said, well, that's not our bubble. And they kept poking at it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what happens is if you can, the bubble is permeable, stuff that worked and was applicable to the past leaves the bubble and you absorb more of the new organization.
Yeah.
And that developmental process is what we call the integration. When you absorb more of what you are within this organization, or let's go back personally, within this new job or within this new situation, because the interesting part is not just job change,
Mhm.
it could be job termination.
Mhm.
You're going to go through all these same stages until you pull yourself back up and find the new job. So I've worked with people going that have been terminated, and the termination was actually the economy took a big dive and there was a big cut. It
Mhm.
wasn't about their competency. It was just the organization was going to save itself, and it had to cut 20, 30, 40% off. Remember in 2008, that was a big cut not that long ago. We
Yeah.
had the other economic situation, and some employers, some of my clients were cutting back as far as 60%. They were service oriented.
Yeah.
Everything dried up. It was COVID.
Yes.
There was
Yes.
no work. So service orientations, nobody's at work. So as a consultant or a recruiter or whatever you think you are, there is no activity. In order to save the organization, they had to do a massive RIF and reduction workforce. And that's going to happen. So the question is, what do you do about that? And fortunately, some of the clients that were my clients, then I stayed with them to help them in their transition. We went through this entire set of process,
Mhm.
but walked all the way out to get to the point of realizing, okay, that happened, no fault of mine. What do I need to do to resettle, rebalance, find my center of gravity to move forward? And or the more classic process of this is, if more people were aware of these stages, is marriage.
Yeah.
It's a complete two culture clashes at the same time. All the things you fell in love with is all you see during the courting stage.
Right.
Now,
Reality of the expectations is different.
not just expectations, some of the silliest things like, you know, funny parts. Uh, how do you put the roll of toilet paper? So it comes down the
Right.
back or it comes down the front.
Right. Right. Right.
And it's like, okay, let's get past the silliness. As long as it's working.
As long as there's toilet paper.
Right. Exactly. And so these stages, what I found it fascinating is over the years is what makes them useful is your awareness. You can self-diagnose yourself. Oh, I'm in this stage right now.
Mhm.
And okay, this is where I'm going to be for a little while. So what are the things I need to do? And one of the things that has to shift is you go from a negative, this is a bad decision, to what are the possibilities?
Yeah.
Not what's wrong, but what's right. What am I doing to support myself and move forward?
Mhm.
You've gone through probably the first four stages.
There. Yes. Actually, you know what? I would say right now, it's so funny. There is, yeah, the tentative acceptance. I think I've gone self-doubt. I've gone through the back and forth. Do I belong here? Should I go? Is this the right fit? Everything they told me versus the reality. Trying to shift myself, find things to reground myself. So I'm hanging in there still. And I started to envision maybe what could this be? I wasn't trying to put a timeline on the place, but I just wanted to look at what could I do while I'm here? How much could we move the needle, or how could I benefit or serve people while I'm in my role? Um, and being okay with, I think, the lack of clarity. I was like, it's new. Everything is new. The role is new. I'm new to the organization. Everything is new. And so in my last role, it took 5, 6 years to build something. I built who I was. Everyone knew exactly what I was supposed to do or what I was trying to do. And so now here I'm in a state of like, no one really knows, and it's new to the organization. And the organization also has got a lot of other stuff going on too that it needs to attend to. So, um, you have understanding the context that I'm also operating in, I think was really helpful as well.
Because the context is a big deal whenever you have a shift. So, like a job change like yours to a completely different organizational culture is big.
Yeah.
Mergers and acquisitions, the reason a lot of them fail is the leadership doesn't understand. They have to go through these stages with both groups
Yes. Yeah.
because the existing company who has acquired the other one or the two of them merging, either way, both companies have to shift. Those who understand that are highly successful. Those who don't understand that, oftentimes it ends up being a financial disaster and they sell off whatever they bought because they didn't take the time to actually go through the stages and create a culture.
Yes. Culture is so important.
Well, there is a very, very old, I think it was Henry Mintzberg said it. I don't know who it was, but somebody years ago said the strategy eats, or culture eats strategy.
Our culture eats strategy. That's powerful.
Yeah, because if you don't integrate your strategy fully into the existing culture or shift the
Yes.
culture to the new strategy and take the time to do it, it fails.
And I've seen this in organizations in all of my roles. Like I've in the I think Cuyahoga County, when I used to work there, was probably we were going through a transition and change. Um, but you had to be strategic to focus on the end goal and then wrap the culture around to like support the strategy. So even now, where I'm at now, that's what I'm trying to do with, patient experience and integrate it at the, highest level of the organization and the strategy. If it's not in the strategic plan, then I can't create a culture around, the patient experience, or even just a culture of like compassion.
Let
If
me
it's not
give you,
in,
let me give you a different way of looking at it.
yeah,
Build the culture one person at a time, rising up, and it'll become the strategy.
yeah.
But if you're waiting for the strategy to support you,
Mhm.
good luck. What you
Mhm.
excel in is relational development with people to get them to try and improve the patient experience. Focus on
Yeah.
what you're good at. Don't worry about what's going on around you up above at this point because the only thing it's going to do is frustrate you.
Yes.
You built that confidence and that respect in the other organization at 5 years.
Then
You had to build it all over again.
yes, started from scratch, cleaning. And it's so funny you said that, because when I sat and thought about it, and I had to go back to remember what it was like when I started. And it's relational. It took a long time. And then we were in the middle of COVID. So when I even got connected into, I think it was only till year 2, really, was where I got integrated into the building and started to meet more of the staff. So it even took that long. I was ready to go to be like, hey, we got to do this. Your organization is committing to this. This is the plan. This is what we need to do. And then they were like, pause. But that time was so important, and I actually would never have traded that time. It took a good year, and what happened was staff saw me like as a part of them. I was working alongside with them. They just got to see that I was consistent and I was smiling and my personality was like who I was. And it took a year and finally they were, okay, we might want to try, we'll try one of the things that maybe you suggested.
So you, over a year, got them to test, experiment,
Yeah.
slowly make new meaning about what you were doing and begin the integration. The problem you've been struggling with is you want to start at the top
Yeah.
and not go through the entire process of, because they're going through it too. You're brand new.
Yeah.
And they don't know if you're a good guy or bad guy.
Yep.
Okay. You're new.
It, yeah.
All right. Well, it always isn't good, but we're probably, we
They
probably,
told me I'll be a good guy after 6 months. It's like trial. You gotta like they gotta see if you're gonna stick it out long enough with their organization, and then after that, then they'll give you a chance.
well, just remember 12 to 18 months is how
12 to 18 months. Yeah.
it takes. And you already acknowledged that in your prior job. It took 12 months to get to a certain point, and then you got your success. So,
Yeah.
get off your roller skates and slow down. Okay. All right. Take care. My name's
Thank
Herb
you so
Stevens.
much. I got one last question for you.
Sure.
For stage 7 integration, right? Could that be, is that, what is the term I'm looking for? Maslow's hierarchy needs, is that like self-actualization?
It could be, but generally it's not going to be. Um, Self-actualization is more of actually is a spiritual place. And um, so you could say is that if you get to the point, have you actualized the integration of the change? Yeah, you could say that. But I won't say that you have actually, it goes way beyond that, I guess I'd say. And um, part of the problem I'm hesitating is there are so many connotative meanings about self-actualization as some people will say, well, it should be this or it should be that. And let's just simply say at this point, I'm not saying it's self-actualization is a form of integration.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, it is a way of making meaning at a higher level, which shifts your process and who you are and how you are. But you can also go through these 7 stages and not come out. What you're hoping for is take a pill and be self-actualized. I have to tease you a little bit. So what do you say we call this a day, okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Please take care. I'm Herb Stevenson.
Sahadeo Ramparak.
Thank you for watching our 13th or 14th podcast. I've lost track. Um, somebody that you think might benefit from it, please pass this on to them. If you want a written form of this, a lot of what we're talking about, you can go to Amazon and the Thoughts series. There's 9 published books now, and give us some feedback on YouTube if you so feel like it. So thanks much.
Thank you. Give us some feedback. Let us know how this internal transition model, how are you all feeling with your own changes in life, and is this model fitting for you?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.